welcome back to the Anachroschism. When we left off last time, part of our group had found itself in an interesting situation down by the docks, but before we resume with them, for the sake of tension, Tessie and Lena, you guys had an uneventful first part of your trip. Now you're heading to the library.
Yeah, we're not in any kind of mortal danger, unlike some people.
We're doing great.
The Library of Death.
We're making friends right and left. Oh.
So you just came from Harnstead, which had a pretty sizable library to it. Certainly like bigger than any of the towns you'd seen to that point, and pretty impressive of its own scale. As you guys head a little bit further west into that particular district of Lycidian, you find pretty quickly that that library pales in comparison to this one. In fact, pretty much everything you've discovered to this point is that things that you've seen in other towns, Lycidian has almost all of them, and in doing so has it in a much bigger scale. Library is no different. Probably about the same size as Publica overall. A little smaller, but pretty close. Massive building, multiple floors from the looks of it. And as you head inside, unlike Harnstead, which had like the really tall interior without multiple floors and it needed some of those fancy ladders to get around to some of the books, this is just like the Phoenix Public Library or any other public library where it's a big-ass building, lots of floors. You can't really see the full scope from the interior, but there is a reception desk on the inside as you enter.
I guess Tessie will take the lead. He goes up and is just like, yes, we were wondering if we could look into maybe ancient rituals or rites of the Sowenwood, anything you have on maybe things like of that nature?
There is a relatively young, at least by their scale, looking female dwarf behind the counter. And she does kind of take an interest as you say this. She says, "Oh, the Sowenwood. It's a fun place from what I've heard. We don't have a ton of material on it, but we certainly have a few things. Would you like me to direct you in the right way? I can't say we're going to be a ton of help." She seems a little nervous. She's like almost too excited in a sense. With Momo, this is different for you because you were at both of these, obviously. For Lena, this is different because she's new to this. But like with Momo, it was a nervous excitement. Like she was really curious and really interested in learning more. This one comes across more as like social awkwardness.
Tessie's like, sure, if you'd like to point us, we can head down there or whatever.
She says, well, of course, yes. Well, right this way then. And she kind of walks out from behind the desk. And she ultimately ends up leading you up to the third floor and weaving around these rows of bookcases, all of which have really well-bound tomes on them. Some of them, like you come across some sections of these bookcases as you're walking past them that are really like thick, really wide books that almost look like binders of a sort that have like a whole thick set of pages on the inside. Some of them are just like really, really big books. And then when you get to this third floor section, they get more narrow, and the bookcases are a little more spaced out and a little less plentiful. And there's a sign that's over this particular section that she's led you to that says, "Myths and Legends." She says, "Well, I can't really say much about the Sowenwood. I haven't been before, but we have some books about the Sowenwood. We don't have a lot of information. I mean, they tend to keep to themselves, but anything you might be able to find, I think you can find here."
And Tessie nods and thanks. She's like, well, you've been much appreciated. We know that information is hard to find. We're simply trying to find a starting point. So thank you.
Well, please let me know if there's anything you need. I'll be back at the desk.
Of course.
For the sake of time, go ahead and make an investigation check, both of you.
20.
18.
Utilizing
Nice.
all of your knowledge about the Dewey Decimal System, you come across the information that you can as quickly as possible. And what you're finding, looking through some of the books and the material, is Tessian. You don't know the Sowenwood as well as Lena, but you do just know books in general. You're pretty well read, and this is definitely not going to be very useful. Lena, as you're flipping through, you can see like there are some things that are true, or at least close to the truth, where it feels like maybe rumors that got out about the city, or like they're not specific enough to where you think, oh, somebody knows what we're doing, but they're like they're hovering around the truth of the matter. You also see some things that are just patently ridiculous. We're talking the level of the people of the Sowen Wood are 20 feet tall. The people of the Sowen Wood don't brush their teeth. Things that are just like the worst kind of stories that you would hear that have still been transcribed for book purposes, seemingly because of the lack of information to put in otherwise. There is really nothing mentioned about the Conatus other than its name. And then again, these details, again, from what little you got from your grandmother, do not match up at all. This looks like the work of some hack trying to make themselves famous or make some money off of it, and really just not working with complete information.
Tessian looks at Lena and very solemnly is like, well, I'm sorry to see that unlike the rest of your family, you're not 20 feet tall. I'm sure that must have really stung you a lot.
And of course I laugh at this. I say, I know I shouldn't be surprised at how inaccurate some of this is, but it really is reinforcing just how important it is for us to maybe not be so isolated. It's interesting discovering what other people think about us.
And I gotta say, I don't know that I've ever seen you brush your teeth, so I'm a little concerned now. He kind of gives her a smile, but he's like, yeah. But good news is, looks like we may be able to fetch a bit more of a price on our information as we forge this deal with the Stratum. If this is the best that they've got on the Sowen Wood, then let's be honest, anything we give them should fetch a rather high price.
I have the same thought as well. It'll be a partnership incentivized even more.
Justin's like, well, I would say this is a bust, but is there anything else that we should look into while we're here?
I sort of get lost in thought. Like, I start thinking about what we should do, and then I kind of just zone out and am not thinking about the same topic anymore.
God, maybe Tessian will just sort of, I don't want to say like walk the library. It's pretty big, but he'll just maybe kind of look around, like who else is in here, any other interesting people, stuff like that. Like just kind of canvass the area for a minute or two.
Okay, go make a perception check.
It is a 19.
Walking around the area, the first thing that strikes you is the absence of people. And what quickly clicks for you is that people who know about this library and are familiar with its surroundings and whatnot must know not to trust this section of it very much, because this particular wing of this floor is relatively barren. And what you do see, the handful of people that are here, there is a young couple sitting on like a beanbag together that are looking at one of the books and pointing at it and laughing. And it all just kind of goes to verify this notion that, if anything, this is almost like a humorist section more than it is anything of legitimate historical accuracy. Legitimate.
Legitimate. Yeah.
Shut up.
Tessie finds it funny. He kind of chuckles to himself. He's like, well, if you can't think of anything else, perhaps we should hit the town, look for other sources of information or something to aid us in our journey before we head back.
Yes, I think we should do that. I kind of snap back to the present. And then I kind of get lost in thought again.
So I guess we head out, but Tessian does ask, he's like, is there something on your mind?
No, I was hoping you wouldn't notice. The conversation earlier, it's had me thinking about so much. More than anything, I've just wondered what my brother would think of me if he knew what Isaac said about having no restraint for killing. I suppose it's rubbed me wrong.
And Tessian's like, well, I wouldn't give Isaac's words too much thought. He's a little delusioned in his thinking. You are destined for at least some form of leadership. In the long run of things, you are rather long-lived, and there's no way of knowing what will happen. And even if you're never in charge of the Sowen Wood, you'll have responsibilities like I do. And more often than not, those responsibilities well, they will endanger or potentially ruin people's lives. Death or poverty or, I mean, it's all part of ruling a nation, a people. Not everyone can be talked down. People have to be punished. Examples have to be made. People have to be protected from other people. It's part and parcel with the job. I don't think he sees it that way yet, but, well, you'll have plenty of years to work it out, so I don't know that I would worry too much about it.
I hope you're right. It also makes me regret not talking to my brother more about such things. He was so duty-bound, and I was something of a troublemaker compared to him. I wish I had listened to him more.
And Tessie does raise an eyebrow when you say troublemaker. And he's like, what kind of trouble did you get up to?
Well, you may have heard my grandmother say that I snuck out a lot. It's true. I abandoned my studies almost constantly, sneaking out of the palace.
Aww.
In my animal, whether I'd transform into a cat or the little dragon, I was always trying to sneak off and explore, people watch. Always abandoned my studies. Nobility was so boring and dull when I was young.
Tessie's like, I think you'd get along with my sister, Amalia. She's very similar to you, actually. She hates being cooped up in Black Harbor. She's always asking me all kinds of stories and whatnot. I think you two would get along.
I'd love to meet her.
Perhaps someday, when we're anywhere near where we should be.
Yes, may take some time yet, but hopefully we can get there.
Well, first, let's hit the town. Let's look around a bit more.
Yes, let's do that.
So, I guess we beep bop on
over.
past the dwarf lady. We give her like, oh, thanks for all the help. It was super useful, which is a complete lie, kind of. And then
It was mostly just funny, but yeah.
She's very kind of awkward. It's like, oh, of course, nobody really ever finds it useful, but I'm glad that you got something out of it. I hope it was helpful.
and you know, oh yes, of course, even whatever. It doesn't. He's just making pleasantries.
He's over her.
So this whole place is a waste in a way. So we'll just keep going, leave outside, and I guess, I don't know, walk the district a bit more. If this is where you learn stuff, I mean, there's bound to be other places between these big organizations, I imagine. I mean, I'm not saying we need to like knock down every single door and be like, what is this place? Who are you? But
well, you know from experience that one of the places that might be worth checking out is Prudential Hall, which oversees all of the schools in the area. They may be well versed enough to know somebody who might have some information. If the library was a bust, at least in regards to this little known ceremony, then perhaps there could be someone there who may be familiar.
then yeah, Tessa will suggest it, and assuming Lena's down with it, we'll head that way.
Yeah, works for me.
So this, you have to head to essentially the westmost point of that district, and in doing so, you come across a place that essentially has the exterior that looks like the Greek structures of old, like Ionic columns interspersed across the outside. It has a very, regal's not the right word, but a very like knowing look to it, which is to say, like, you can tell pretty quickly this is a place of knowledge. It's a place that takes itself seriously. It's a place that looks formal on the outside. The main like exterior building, because you can see behind it are like this network of bigger and smaller buildings, a couple of which you're familiar with from past travels visiting Thea here. But you haven't really been in this front one, and it does seem to be more of like a welcoming area or a checkpoint of sorts before people actually head onto what would be effectively called a campus. It seems like a decent starting point at the very least.
Okay. We'll go inside, I suppose.
Inside, the first person that catches your eye is actually not behind a desk for once, but somebody who's sort of pacing back and forth in this lobby area. It's well lit. Nice carpeting and rugs on top of that as well. Again, like the interior matches the exterior in the sense of it's all very ordered, all very meticulous, all very to a lot of extents it's also pretty symmetrical in the sense of like they've built this up with a very specific function in mind. And you see him almost wearing a path into the carpet as he paced back and forth. And it's a about medium height, looks to be either half elf or elf from the quick glance you give him, bespectacled and very nervous looking. And he kind of looks up at you guys as you enter, and he just says, "More bad news?"
And Tessian kind of looks at Lena, a little confused, and he's like,
I'm also confused.
I would hope not. You might have us confused with someone else. What bad news are you looking for or to avoid?
And he kind of stops pacing, but as he turns to address you, you can still see like he's rubbing his hands and kind of wringing them together nervously. He's acknowledging your presence. He's looking at you, but it looks like he's looking just past you. Like he's looking at you, he's taking you in, but he also doesn't really seem to be giving you his full attention. And he says, my apologies, you may just be new. We've just had an issue across the school recently where there's been kids missing, and I don't know, it feels like every time somebody's come by today, it's just been one bad thing after another. I apologize. Can I help you?
Tessian's like, well, we were going to ask about finding some information on the Sowenwood and some of their rituals, trials, history type of stuff. But what's this you say about children missing?
Well, we're still working on finding out exactly what happened. The town watch has been by multiple times today. We've even seen the Crusaders a couple of times. But there was a group that was going on a field trip of sorts, exploring the city, and they've not checked back in. We're not entirely sure where they or their instructor went, but it's been a couple hours past where we should have heard from them, and as such, we've sent people out across the city to look for them, but as you probably have realized already, Last City is a big place, and we're having a hard time with it.
Where were they headed for this field trip?
Well, they were headed to the central area, as well as the southern part. Most of the time, people stay inside the schools for their studies, but in this case, we wanted them to have a bit of a fun excursion outside the city, especially because some of our students are not from around here. They just travel here to study. So we thought it would be fun for them to go check out some of the performing plazas, maybe stop by the Yarn Amphitheater. There were some places we thought that would make for an interesting kind of day trip to walk around and see different sights.
It's like, well, it would appear you have your hands full here. We don't mean to, intrude in everything that's going on. We could always come back another time, I suppose, or perhaps help you find them.
I mean, we wouldn't turn down any help right now, but it's not going to be the simplest idea. I mean, we'd have a basic sort of sense of where they were in the city, but even that expanse would still be hard to walk through. I mean, there was going to be a 3.5 hour walk that could be anywhere along that path or somewhere else if they got sidetracked or lost. You shouldn't have to worry about this. I apologize for even burdening you with this in the first place. It's just you happened to catch me at a bad time.
And Tessian's like, no, it's fine. And he kind of leans over to Lena, and he's like, I know we should try to keep to ourselves and stay on task, but a favor from... if these people owe us a favor, that might be worth something in the long run. If we can just find some people real quick. I know I said it was hard before, but they haven't been gone that long.
I don't see why not. Might as well try to help since we're here anyways.
And Tessian's like, well, you know what? So, tell you what. We'll take a look around, see if maybe we can help you out. If you wouldn't mind, though, before we maybe do you a favor, would you happen to know of any resident experts on the Sowenwood, or perhaps ancient rites or rituals?
And he kind of actually acknowledges you with eye contact for the first time. And he rubs his chin a little bit. And he says, it's pretty rare. I mean, we used to once have a notable student who came here, but that was a spectacle of its own, really. And in general, we really just don't have a lot of contact with anybody from there. I wish we did more. They're supposed to be a very learned people, but they keep to themselves so much that it's hard to glean too much information. There are some folks in town who have looked into them in more detail. I know that Stratum has worked on them quite a bit, and yet not yielded much results. I can check around as far as professors on the campus, see if any of them have any experience in that regard.
And Tessian's like, that would actually be appreciated. We're going to be undertaking a task for Stratum, actually, and we simply want to be prepared with as much information as we can gather. So anyone that could point us in any direction would be a great help, a boon to the academic community as a whole.
Well, I will see what I can find out. Obviously, once this present situation's been dealt with, I'll put a feeler out from anybody who's not actively looking for them and see what information I can get for you.
Tessian's like, I appreciate it. Thank you.
How old are the students that, like, what grade level are they in or whatever?
This was a younger class, not super young, but probably in the 11 to 13 range. Most of them in that group were.
I see. Thank you.
They would have been with a elvish woman, probably 90 to 95 years old. It's hard to tell from with elves sometimes with their age, but she was with them as well. She would have been the teacher that was escorting them. I couldn't even tell you what she was wearing last. I did not see her this morning, but...
Does she have a name?
If you happen to come across a group match in this description, ask around for Asner Lava Shield. She has long, wavy, brown hair. Can't tell you much about an outfit or anything. Like I said, I hadn't seen her today, but she would have been the one accompanying the students.
Well, it's a good starting point, if nothing else. Thank you.
Well, thank you.
And I guess we'll sort of head out and maybe try to help. I don't know. Yeah. God, I mean, Tessian was a young kid at one point, and it's not like he doesn't know sort of how academic kids maybe try to spend their time. Would Tessian know of any... I don't know. It's not like he spent a lot of time in Lycidian. Is there like a hangout place? You know, like oh man, let's go hang out at the whatever. That's where the cool
skate
kids are.
park, man.
Yeah. Is there like a skate?
The
or
mall.
Like
the sock hop.
Yeah. You know, or like God, even like a stupid like Lover's Point or something stupid like where the cool kids go, or like
Taco
you know,
Bell.
yeah. Do they all hang out at the Harkins Theater? Like, they don't even see the movies? Like, what's going on?
That's actually the part that troubles you a little bit, because from your understanding of Lycidian, although it's by no means comprehensive, the place where a lot of people would congregate for something like that, to maybe like sneak off or just to sit aside and then take in a show or something, is this plaza that's to the southeast of Lorton Keep, where a lot of musicians can perform. There's a couple different stages, like a big one and a few smaller ones where there'll be traveling acts that come through, or regulars. That's the kind of place where a lot of younger people will congregate, and it would have been like the first place you might have thought of that they could have snuck away for this, except it was already on the list. That was one of the things he was talking about, was that area, in addition to the amphitheater and a couple others. So that's what troubles you a little bit about this, actually, is that you do know of a spot. This is one of them, but if they weren't found there, then it raises some questions.
Then I guess Tessian suggests, he's like, well, let's head where they might be going and keep an eye out for anything strange. And he's like, you may even want to get a bird's eye view of things, if you catch my drift.
I nod. Okay, if I'm gonna do that, I probably need to find like a back alley to transform, so I'm not just a little dragon flying off in the sky. Yeah, so I'll go do that.
Okay.
But I'll fly back over to you, kind of. Or I don't know. There are a lot of people where we're at.
There's a lot of people
Oh,
wherever
there's a
you're
lot
at.
of people. Okay, maybe not. I'll just
find a telephone booth and just like...
Sure. I mean, I'm not saying it's impossible to find it. Like, you could find an alleyway that's less popular or something. It's just, yeah, in Lycidian during the day, you're not going to find a place on the streets where you're going to have any quiet whatsoever.
Right. So I'll go like to a back alley, transform, and then somehow make it known to you so we don't lose
I mean, I
track of
can
each other.
follow you back there.
something.
It's not like
Oh.
I mean, it's
I thought
it's
we
not
were
like
gonna
it's not like
split
you're undressing or anything.
It's a magical
like,
girl transformation. Just beams of light.
up. Okay, that makes more sense.
Okay.
Let's do that, not make this needlessly complicated.
So you in pseudo dragon form and Tessian form are going to head where?
I think so Tessie's gonna pretty much say like that direction, or like southeast, right? What is the direction of the pavilion? So basically, just like we'll walk this way and just sort of look down back alleys, look down any place that people could have got lost along the way to it, basically. So just anything suspicious. It's like, especially because if you can look like from the top, like just I hate just saying back alleys again, but like anything off the beaten path specifically. They've clearly checked the beaten path, so we need to be looking at everything else. We're basically trying to go get mugged. We're looking for muggers. That's
Right.
what we're doing.
Muggers for both groups.
Crash.
Love it. That's what we're here for.
So you guys go ahead and roll a perception check in a general sense, and we'll switch back to Group B.
Oh my god.
As you guys
I'm
close the barn door of this warehouse, and as you and also Aurora acknowledge the guards, she then quickly looks around the interior, motions you to follow her into what appears to be a side office, and immediately starts striding in that direction. With her slender but tall form, her strides are remarkably well paced. Like, she doesn't even wait to see if you're following. She just looks around real quick, doesn't see anybody, and immediately it takes like 6 steps to go 40 feet into that office.
I'm going to follow.
Same.
And my countenance is a lot more serious than it has been to this point.
Mm-hmm.
As you guys walk into the office, she immediately, like, not forcibly pushes you, but like just motions you get in, and then closes the door behind her. As she looks out at the last second as it's closing, she just looks around the corner, make sure, you're not sure what she's looking at necessarily, but she's looking for something, and apparently doesn't see anything, and then she closes the door.
You asked me, is this serious? And I pull out the photo and I show her and I said, I hope this answers your question. We are looking for Sophia on behalf of Dunask. And he said, you may be the only person here who can point us in the right direction.
And she looks over the picture, and you can see the recognition quickly. And she goes, that crazy old fool. I told him this was too risky. He never did listen, did he? I mean, if you've met him, you understand.
To be fair, he didn't want this. It took some convincing. Myself and my partners think that this is the best course of action if he wants to see his daughter alive and well again.
Sorry, I got distracted by testing.
I'm sorry, by present
You're not
party
here.
included.
Not me.
For the first time, you can see her posture slump just a little bit. She has been like very proper, very upright to this point, stern looking, and it's slightly softened just a bit. And she says, I mean, if it were as simple as saving her, Lord knows we would have done anything to try, but it's a little more complicated than that.
What's going on? Can you tell us more? It took a lot to get Dunas to even agree to this, and he said he would give us a couple of weeks to try to find her. Otherwise, he's going to pull some kind of gambit himself to get her returned safely.
Well, I'd rather not give you any more information than I have to. So, tell me this much. What did he tell you about the operation here? What did he tell us? That basically just that she's building some kind of prototype sort of ships, kind of like he was doing, and that was sort of the extent of it, right? And then, of course,
And they were holding her hostage. Yeah.
of course, what he was doing was different, and yeah, they're holding her hostage so he would comply.
Okay, so she kind of takes in that summary, and she says, so you know about Faust Dryden, then?
You could say that, yes. Unfortunately, we do.
She does, well, let's see. No, doesn't really pick up on that. She says, well, if you know about his involvement in this, then I'm surprised you came.
It's, to be honest, it's part of why we came. He's no one to be trifled with, and if he is holding this girl, then I fear the situation is dire.
Well, I don't disagree with you. I don't know whether to yell at you for being so reckless or to thank you for even trying in the first place. I do feel like if you understand the type of man Faust Dryden is, that coming down to the docks and asking questions like that was a bad idea.
I'm going to stare at him and glare at Isaac one more time.
We
It
were
all
willing
worked
to
out.
accept the risks. We didn't know where else to start.
I mean, the risks when it comes to Faust Dryden aren't exactly something like being arrested or being hurt. The risks are death.
Let me worry about Faust Dryden.
Oh, no, I'm going to worry about Faust Dryden very much, thank you. I'm much more tied to him than you are.
While that may be true, if you can tell us anything about recovering this girl, we would be very appreciative.
Well, here's what I know. I've never seen her here, even when Dunask was still working here. She's kept at some other location within the city, as far as I've been able to tell. I mean, I am reasonably well connected in this town, but that only gets you so far in a town of this magnitude. But I do have some people among the town watch and someone with the council that I'm familiar with, so at the very least, I have my ear to the ground. I don't know where she's being kept, and I don't even know how much his involvement is directly, but they have her somewhere. There was some way, while Dunask was still here, that they could prove to him that she was, still fine and in good care, but beyond that, I never saw her in this building. It seemed like it would have been foolish to bring the two of them together, and even since he's left, I haven't really heard much more about it.
So,
wait. Do you are there men who come and check on your work? Like Dunask mentioned that there were people working for Dryden who would come and visit and make sure that you were on track. Does that happen? And do they come straight here to the warehouse? We could possibly tail them.
Oh, it happens. They come here probably 3 or 4 times a day, usually unannounced, sporadically, so that we don't necessarily know when they're going to show up.
Oh, have they come today?
They have once this morning, yes.
Oh, shit.
do we have a reason to believe that these are the same men holding her? Were these involved in the exchanges for proof of life, for example, where they were getting whatever piece of information they needed and presenting it to Dunask? Because you said they weren't... Dunask and Sophia were not meeting in person for this.
Yes, they were using some sort of, I don't know if it was magical or technological means, but there was never any in-person contact. But as such, I don't know who was handling it. I just know that we had the same core group of people that come check up on us periodically and make sure work's getting done.
Well, and they're reporting straight to Dryden, or someone, reporting straight to him. So at any rate, we got to follow them. That's our only way. This town is much too large.
What do these groups look like? 2 men? Pairs that come and check on you?
Typically pairs, occasionally a third person comes along, seems to outrank the 2 of them.
And is it the same men? Or is it a bunch of different that rotate?
There's a group. I'd say we'd recognize most of them most of the time. You'll see the same folks more often than not, but typically they don't come more than once in a day. So you might see them a few times a week, but not on a same shift in a day.
How advanced do they appear? I mean, I imagine they're not scrubs doing this kind of work, but do they seem like high-ranking figures, or just help me understand what kind of people we're dealing with?
Well, the thing about Faust Dryden is he's nothing if not thorough. So the people that he's hired to come keep tabs on this particular project, we've never seen them actually kill anyone here, but I've seen their agility and their proficiency. They seem like, if they're not hired assassins, they're something of the same ilk, because occasionally we've had an engineer get a little mouthy or fail to meet goals on an individual basis, and they've been escorted off the premises rather quickly, and we don't see them again.
Hmm.
Do any of them have names?
We have to understand we're not exactly on a conversational level. It's more of a, we know who these people are. If they have questions, we answer them as quickly and as to the point as possible, and then we're left to our devices again.
How did you? I kind of pause, and I'm like, I know you don't want to tell us as much as we may want to hear, but how did you get involved in this?
Well, it seemed like a good project at the time. For engineers like Dunask or myself, the prospect of working on something of this magnitude, something that could really affect change, seemed like a tantalizing one. And I like to think that in the beginning, it was all on the up and up. And I'm not entirely sure exactly when Mr. Dryden wanted to have a say in the proceedings, but relatively early in the project, let's just say some things around here changed, and all the engineers started having to work under duress.
So they're holding you hostage as well.
Something like that, yes.
I don't want to take too much time here. Can you meet us later tonight? We have a room in the Ritz-Carlton.
In the Hyatt house.
I tell her our room number and where we're staying. Can you come meet us and we can be a little more relaxed in talking about these things?
She kind of looks hesitant, and she says, we're kept to our own devices for the most part when we're not putting in 12-hour days here to get this damned boat done. That said, it wouldn't surprise me if there was some sort of surveillance set up. Now, I'm an engineer. I'm not exactly the sneakiest person on the planet. If you're willing to take the risk, I'm happy to stop by. Otherwise, I would warn you, I'm not necessarily sure I won't be followed.
What if you meet me at a tavern or some sort of store around there? And
is there any place that you frequent that would not look out of the ordinary?
This gets sort of like a sad chuckle out of her. She's like, honestly, without Keith, I haven't had a lot of reason to do a lot of other activities recently. Most of the time it's been work 12 to 14 hours, go home, eat some inadequate meal, get some inadequate sleep. There are some public areas that I used to go to that wouldn't seem too out of place, but I'm not necessarily sure they're going to be appropriate for this kind of conversation.
Could we come to you, or is that just completely out of the question?
I mean, how many people are you talking here? The three of you? Because that's a decent-sized group.
Maybe even just one or two of us.
She seems even more hesitant at this, and it's like she's trying to meet you in the middle on this, but at the same time, there is something that's holding her back, and she even just kind of out and says it. She says, whether it's you coming to me or me coming to you, if I get caught and they think it's suspicious, it's the same reason that Dunask wasn't really trying to look for his daughter all that steadfastly either, because he couldn't do it much without attracting attention. Now, he had some other people in Lycidian he knew as well that he had looking for her, but himself, he really tried to keep it as close to the chest as possible.
So if you got caught, that would mean bad things for Keith?
Presumably. Again, it wouldn't take much meeting new people, even though it seems like it should be a regular daily activity. In this particular situation, I don't know that it goes over well.
Could you correspond with us? I mean, I'm just trying to think of ways that would eliminate suspicion.
I mean, there are ways to do that, yes. I could slip notes to the town guard and have them be delivered. There are ways to make that happen, but it's not exactly direct conversation.
Just meet us at a bar, and we'll be alone in the front getting a drink. Come sit, and we'll talk inconspicuously. If anyone's watching, they maybe won't even know you're conversing with us. Come sit down, have a drink, and we can learn a little bit more.
She says, I would like to take you up on that. And to be honest with you, I think I will, but Who are you? Why are you here? All I know is that Dasso tipped me off pretty quickly. That's why the guard came over when they did. To the fact that someone was asking around. But even though you know Danosk, and that's part of why I even brought you in here in the first place, why are you here?
Let's just say for now, we don't have a lot of time to spare. I can explain it more in detail later. We are friends of Danosk, and we're trying to find Sophia. We're trying to liberate her from whatever oppression she is facing right now and get her and Danosk away from this. If they're holding Sophia somewhere, there is a chance that's where Keith is being held as well, and we can definitely keep an eye out for him. But I just feel like this is an opportunity for us to learn more, and maybe you to learn more or share more important details as well.
She considers and she sighs and she says, "That girl doesn't deserve what's happened to her. I will take the chance."
Where's the best, most busy, the busiest bar around where we're staying?
Well, if you're staying in Publica, there's not a whole lot of more well-populated places than that lobby area.
And I'm assuming there's a bar that I saw that maybe I'm not thinking of. Okay, perfect. Can you meet us there tonight?
I can if it's after 9.
Done.
You get the sense, by the way, that she's maybe halfway through her day, maybe less. And obviously at this point it's getting to be, I mean, with everything you've done to this point, around noon. And it seems like she's already been putting in work and she has hours ahead of her yet.
Yeah. In the meantime, we're going to leave. We're going to be nearby, and we'll consider tailing these men. I don't know what it's going to yield or if it's going to work, but we'll try to do this today, and we'll be there at 9.
Do me one favor then. If you're going to try to tail them, I don't know how skilled you are at that. That's fine. It seems like a decent idea. Don't get me wrong. Please don't ask any more questions. All I've found in my experience with this operation and with Faust Dryden is that questions get you hurt.
That's fair.
I'll answer things to the best of my ability tonight, and if you find those to be lacking, then so be it. But at least until tonight, please don't call any more attention to this place.
I don't think we will need to, but noted.
I with my connections, I can have small-scale things disappear, but there are only so many things that will escape his notice, and only so many things the town guard can sweep under the rug.
Okay, well, thank you. We'll stop complicating things for you right now, and we will see you tonight.
Very well. I'll see you then.
Thank you.
That is a fantastic boat.
She kind of... There is just the smallest hint of a smile to that. She has had a more sour countenance because of the hours, the situation, etc. The unexpected nature of this. You catch just like the slightest spark there of like, you know what? You're right, she is doing damn good work. And for that moment, she just kind of leans over and she says, "Well, thank you. I think we're doing a great thing here. We're just doing it for the wrong reasons."
Okay, so we'll get out of there.
Yeah, get the fuck out of there.
So you guys head out of the office, sidle your way back to the door, open it without a strength check, because, whatever, and head back out to the docks. What's your plan?
Okay, so I think we need to get away from the docks because that's apparently conspicuous, but to get a good, view of that warehouse so that we have eyes on it.
Yeah. Do we see a building or something nearby that can kind of serve as that for us?
Some of the warehouses across the street are also multi-floor, and if you could get to the top of them, might provide some level of sight on it without seeming too conspicuous, as long as nobody saw you up there. Beyond that, this district is relatively flat. Heading back up to the north, it's a risk-reward because in some senses there are some higher buildings that jut out, but there's also a whole bunch more people because you're heading back right to the tail end of the shopping district then.
Is there a particular pathway that we're following, wooden boards that go across the way that we can kind of I don't know, walk down occasionally to kind of patrol, not in some obvious way, but just to kind of that we're there?
Essentially, there's just this one path that you guys went across that led up to the barn doors in the front, and then it leads back to that wide, expansive cobblestone street that connects to the warehouses on both sides, the docks, etc.
So they're going to be coming from there.
Yes. One way or the other. Not entirely sure which. Probably, you would think, from the east, where the center of that path was, and then you branched off to this side at their direction. You would imagine that the traffic's going to be coming from there and then coming across, and not from the other side as you head east. But beyond that, yeah, the movement patterns, you're not entirely sure.
So I'm just going to do this out of character. Is there a way where we can tail and have Karash follow at a safe distance, or should we not have him even part of this operation whatsoever? And your vote matters, Mike.
Yeah. My only thought, and I was thinking about this while you were talking about it, would be, at best, what I could do is, like, tail you as you tail them, and then if anything happens, I can say, sincerely, I thought I saw my friends go this way, and I was trying to find them.
Or even, I mean, you could even say something along the lines of, like, these are people, like, suspicious people, and I was wanting to know what was going on. Like, you could make up some lie about being part of, I don't know.
What I would like to do, I'm thinking, I tail them, Michelle tells me, you tail Michelle. Kind of like a train of tailing.
Oh, God. That's a lot of tail.
It was there. It was waiting to happen.
Yeah.
It was.
Because with luck, I have a little bit of leeway in my stealth check, so it might be best.
That's true. I was going to say that my stealth checks are insane, I think. But I don't have, like, if I roll poorly just once, that could be it. So.
I can't roll, so don't
What's your
bother.
stealth, Michelle? What's your bonus?
My bonus, oh God, sorry, I just like closed it out. My stealth is +10.
Okay, that is.
Jesus
I'm
Christ.
+7. I didn't know yours was 10. Still, I
Yeah.
think if you roll a 1, that's it.
Yeah, if I roll one, that's it.
Well, no, because it's not. I mean, technically, an ability check you can't botch like that. You can do attack rolls and stuff like that, but a bad ability roll, you're still getting like an 11.
Oh no,
Yeah,
ones
but
are
if
still
it's a nat,
botches.
yeah, if it's a nat one
Ones
though.
are
I don't think in fifth rules that was the case. Actually, I
It's
thought it was
not in
only
the
for
rules,
attacks
but it's
and
an
stuff.
optional variant, and
Oh,
we use it.
all right, fair enough.
We've
I
already
did not
had ones
appreciate
that were botched skill rolls.
I apparently have missed all of this. It's
That's
been
fine,
a while
I mean-
since we played.
Well, let's all hail Mike the DM.
So let's
Trying to be helpful.
Are you?
let's do that. I mean, so we don't take a lot of time. I mean, do we have a better plan? It's a little complicated, but
It's a little complicated, but I think it beats us trying to go as a group. That's just insane. And I think it kind of like, at the very least, if something goes wrong, it gives at least the last person in the chain an opportunity to tell the rest of the group if something happened.
yeah,
So I actually don't mind it.
I like it. And it keeps Karash there, because if it's just you and me and we get caught and Karash isn't there, we're gonna
And
get boned.
we always have Karash in our group, which is the worst idea because we're super stealthy and he's never stealthy, and so it's just like, we'll just hang out, Karash, and so I always feel bad. But I think this is actually good.
But I like it because we may have some questions for these guys if it comes to that, and we need a bruiser.
Aurora asked us to not ask any more questions.
No, I mean like these dudes.
Yeah.
Catch one, take him into a corner, beat the shit out of him until he gives us what we want to know.
And we only have to ask the questions once, and then when we're done,
Yeah.
we can't
Okay,
have them reporting.
So we're gonna do this. So I'm waiting, kind of in near the spot. You're behind me.
Yeah,
Some distance.
I'm actually gonna be like a ways down the path so that you can pass me and then I can then follow later. And so I'm guessing Karash should probably be even further down the line so that I mean just to
I
keep
like
things.
that. That's cool.
Okay.
And it's busy, so it's not going to be that conspicuous. And cool. So we're ready. Chris, I don't know if you want to switch back. I want to be kind to Tessian and Lena for
Bye,
waiting through all of
Tessian.
this.
I mean, your failures here will be glorious. Either way, I'll be entertained. Whatever.
Our failures. Wow, that's nice. What a nice thing for a party member to say.
We're going to succeed beyond
Is
your
there
wildest.
something?
I'm sorry,
something
what
wrong?
did you guys learn?
I like this train idea that you have. Like, like if something happens in the front, you're like, then they'll catch. It's like if something happens in the back, you're all fucked.
It's
No, nothing's gonna happen in the back.
That's actually not necessarily true because if we have enough distance, then it could just be this lone person acting. Though we will not know if something happens to them. But I mean,
I just imagine like Hawk comes in, picks up Karash, takes off. Hawk comes in, picks up
Just a
Grail.
rock, just.
So actually, I would
the
tell.
odds are
I'm-
much lower.
I'm
That's
not going to
something
do it as much because I want to be really focused on the guys, but I would tell you to keep an eye on Karash as well, because as the middle person. And
Yeah.
then Karash, I would say keep an eye on Grail, which is going to do anyways, but... All right, how do we feel, group? We ready for this?
I guess. Ooh, this is terrifying.
How you feeling, Karash? And I punch him on his armor in like a hype way.
Hype punch.
Karash,
Mike, you
you
have
are
your mute button
muted.
on.
Why did you hit me?
It's like a, high five, handshake thing.
Okay, I'm gonna punch you in the shoulder too.
I am going to go down, probably. All right, good. We're ready.
I'm like helping you up and you're like dusting yourself off. Like, ow.
That's what I like to see. Okay. Let's do it.
Okay.
And we
So-
assume our positions.
You guys start to keep watch with a vantage point on this particular warehouse.